It's all coming out today. The Wall Street Journal not only released an article, today they're getting sued as well for this article about Donald Trump's connection to Jeffrey Epstein. It's explosive. It's about a letter Trump sent to Epstein with supposedly a drawing of a naked woman by Trump, along with a little poem which talks about a wonderful secret that Jeffrey Epstein and Trump share. We will go through all the evidence because there's a lot to this. You are very silly if you jump to conclusions on a story this big with this wide of implications. Let's set the stage because we're going to take our time going through this. The president's behavior during the run-up to this Epstein file leak has been absolutely strange.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
It's pretty boring stuff. It's sorted, but it's boring.
You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff.
You know, these files were made.
This is like truly the greatest example, I guess, of can he actually mind fuck his entire cult? Can he really piss on your leg and tell you it's raining? This is the ultimate example of him being able to do that.
Made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama.
Even his supporters.
And then the testing of like, can I really just say random shit? Like Comey and Obama made up, like Obama? How far back are we going here? Like, are we gonna start to blame Bill Clinton on this or what?
In there because there's a lot of phony stuff.
You know, these files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama.
Even his supporters are like, well, why is he acting this way? It's so weird. All of a sudden it goes from the files exist to they don't exist to they're a hoax actually, and there's a bunch of phony stuff in there. This article, if true, explains a lot of the strange behavior. And we don't know if there's more that's going to come out, if this is all there is, but I'm going to go through the main allegation, and I will call it an allegation because Trump is definitely going to sue over this. He's already said as much. So here's basically...
And now we've seen he has filed the lawsuit in whatever Florida district, maybe hoping to get Eileen Cannon, I guess, as a judge, because he filed it in the Southern District of Florida. Is it my district? Is this what it's called? The United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida. I think he's already filed the lawsuit in this district.
The story. Supposedly, Ghislaine Maxwell collected letters from Trump and dozens of Epstein's associates for a 2003 birthday album. It was for his 50th birthday. Pages from the leather-bound album, assembled before Epstein was first arrested, are among the documents examined by the Department of Justice officials. So there are birthday letters to Epstein that supposedly have been seen by the DOJ. They have them in their files. And the one from Trump supposedly has a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker, and the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist. The Wall Street Journal goes on to say it's not clear how the letter with Trump's signature was prepared. Inside the outline of the naked woman was a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein. Voiceover. There's more to life than having everything. Donald. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey. Nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Yes, we do, come to think of it. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? As a matter of fact, it was me the last time I saw you. And the final line is, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Obviously, that is an insane thing to write to what later would be found out to be one of the world's most prolific but there's also two lines in there which are horrendous. One,
Prolific pedophiles. What a title.
and enigmas never age. That's just a strange line. It's a very incriminating sounding line. We don't know what it means exactly. And then also we see, make every day be another wonderful secret. Of course, this all written inside the outline of a naked woman kind of tells you what secret they may be talking about there. Now we're gonna go over Trump's response, and then of course all the...
You know what? You know what I just realized? I condemn the Wall Street Journal for the publication of this. I think that the Wall Street Journal should have published this story and claimed that it was a letter from Bill Clinton. And I think that they should have let people run with it for 48 hours to have the whole conservative media get their hits in. And then they should have switched in 2 days after collecting 1 billion clips and then revealed that it was from Donald Trump. I think that's what they should have done with this.
Evidence, all the denials, what you may want to know before making up your mind. Like I said, this is not a story where you're going to want to snap to judgment. Even now, I think there's still a lot we need to see. But I want to go over Trump's response. He gave an interview with the Journal on Tuesday evening, and he denied writing the letter or drawing the picture. Quote, "This is not me. This is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story. I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women," he said. "It's not my language. It's not my words." He told the Journal he was preparing to file a lawsuit if it published the article. "I'm going to sue the Wall Street Journal just like I sued everyone else." What do we make of this? Before we jump into the evidence, before we jump into all the reactions, both public and of the people involved, let's just talk about what this could mean. The denial puts Trump in a very particular position, because if it later comes out and turns out to be true, it's worth saying the Wall Street Journal did not publish a photo of the letter, which everyone's been asking for. There are a lot of reasons not to publish it. Maybe your source didn't allow it, but that's a huge part that could come out that changes the whole landscape of this, right? If it comes out it's very devastating because you wouldn't lie about something like this if you thought it was no big deal, right? The denial actually implies a lot of bad things about what the letter could mean. If you weren't worried about a story like this, if you thought the letter was nothing, you wouldn't deny it. You would just give no comment. You certainly wouldn't give an interview. So now we're going to talk about the reactions of the people involved because it's worth.
I don't necessarily agree with that logic. The issue is that because these guys have played into conspiracy so fucking hard, like they make it sound like anything that's even tangentially related to anything is 100% proof that you are part of some grand conspiracy. Look at the Hunter Biden shit forever. Like, you set yourself up for this. Like, this is your own fault.
Saying Trump is not the only letter mentioned in here. And I think that's really important because in a story like this, you want to look to what could be corroborating evidence. So Alan Dershowitz is cited in the piece having written a letter that included a mock-up of a Vanity Unfair magazine with mock headlines of who was Jack the Ripper, was it Jeffrey Epstein? Alan, a former lawyer for Epstein, does not deny this. He says, it's been a long time and I don't recall the content of what I may have written. Lex Wexner also supposedly had a letter in there. He declined to comment. Supposedly his letter was, I wanted to get you what you want, so here it is, after the text was a line drawing of what appeared to be a woman's breast. And then we have a former assistant who was not cited, who sent Jeffrey a letter, oh, Jeffrey of Jeffrey, everyone loves you, fun in the sun, fun just for fun. Pretty innocuous. And then of course we have Donald Trump, who denies, of course, the whole thing. So we have some non-denial, some people who just didn't respond, and then we have Trump. Trump's the only one who's firmly denying this letter so far, with him doubling down on Truth Social, saying, it's not my words, it's not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam and he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did, and now I'm gonna sue him in his third-rate newspaper. Now, a couple comments quick on that. One, the Wall Street Journal is not a third-rate newspaper. It's also not a super left-leaning newspaper. Not that that should matter in journalism, but I know people's media.
I'll give him credit or whatever, because I don't know how much media stuff he covers, but to say that the Wall Street Journal is not a super left-leaning newspaper is not even close to accurate. The Wall Street Journal is considered right-leaning. Now, it's not as right-leaning as Fox, but if you were to ask anybody who does media or who follows media, are there any good, like, right-leaning publications, or who is, like, right-leaning publications? The Wall Street Journal is, like, your staple, like, center-right. They're not, like, a full-on crazy MAGA outlet, but that is your center-right publication. Everybody considers the Wall Street Journal to be, like, a center-right publication. Not, like, center-left, not, like, kind of far-left, but, like, that is a solidly center-right publication.
Media literacy, that stuff kind of tip off their signals. It's unlikely they're going to publish something they know they're going to get sued for unless they have something. And so here's where I want to talk about a little bit of the circumstantial stuff. So Trump obviously states, I don't draw pictures, but turns out that's kind of not true. So in a book called Never Give Up, Trump wrote, each year I donate an autographed doodle to the Doodle for Hunger auction at Tavern on the Green. It's a great event. And sure enough, publicly you can find several doodles that Donald Trump has done. Most of these are of skylines, architecture. None of these are of women. Still, it's strange to say I don't draw pictures when you very clearly draw pictures and they appear to be in thick marker, which is what you were accused of drawing them in. Now, none of that means anything, but it just reminds me a little bit of the Prince Andrew denial. I don't know if you guys remember.
Wait, is that Prince Andrew? Why does he look so similar to... Are these guys all the same person?
Remember the sweat denial. A big part of the interview with Prince Andrew was the denial that he couldn't have done anything bad because he couldn't sweat. So this supposedly falsified Virginia Giuffre's whole story.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
So yeah, that was kind of this claim, like, hey, this couldn't be true because I don't do X, but actually we see that Prince Andrew actually does sweat. And
Based King! We found your fingerprints all over the scene of the crime. Actually, I had a medical condition in those 2 months where my body actually had no natural human oils, so actually it would have been impossible for me to leave fingerprints. That's actually not possible. So I don't know who you found or what you found, but clearly they were planted there.
In the same way, it's not perfect proof, but you really shouldn't say you don't draw pictures when being accused of drawing thick black marker pictures when you definitely draw pictures sometimes. I mean, it's just, and it's public. I mean, that's just kind of just an obvious, devastating hole in your whole argument. Now, again, I've got to say, this is just the basics. We do not have the letter, okay? I'm relying on the Wall Street Journal's reporting on this, and we're corroborating with different pieces of public evidence. Ultimately, we need to see if this was actually in the Epstein files. But there are some other stuff, too, that we can look to corroborate this story. So we can look at the bookbinder. So in the Wall Street Journal report, we see a very specific and interesting corroboration. It says, the book was put together by the New York City bookbinder Herbert Weitz, according to people involved with the process. Weitz listed Epstein as a client on his website in 2003. So here we have a chance to corroborate externally. Of course, it's not a full corroboration, but we have a chance to look to see, was it actually on his website, right? So if we go to the archive, we see in 2003 at weitzcoleman.com, we see a client list, and we see Jeffrey Epstein is listed on it with a different spelling of Jeffrey, I should note. And this says people for whom we have bound up books and albums. This is another piece of circumstantial evidence that makes it hard to believe it's just fully made up. Now, you can believe something in the middle. You can believe that the letter exists and the Wall Street Journal saw it and somebody invented it, right? Like, there are a lot of options here. But the idea that, okay, the Wall Street Journal is just fully inventing this story. They're releasing something with literally no evidence. They're just fabricating it all, but citing all these different people, citing third-party stuff that you can fact-check publicly. That's a piece of evidence to think about. Now, we're going to talk about the public reactions to this. We have Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, saying the Wall Street Journal published a hatchet job with a fake birthday letter that's supposedly from 2003. This is like the Steele dossier that kickstarted the Russia hoax all over again. The Wall Street Journal refused to show us the letter and conceded they don't even have it in their possession when we asked them to verify the alleged document they're basing their entire fake story on. Then you have Dan Walken saying the amount of people who think publications, the scope of the Wall Street Journal, just put explosive stuff out about a public figure without well-established authentication procedures and running it through a team of lawyers know literally nothing about journalism. Charlie Kirk says this is not how Trump talks at all. I don't believe it, referring to the actual letter's contents. Specifically, people picked up on the idea that Trump says enigma in the writing of it. In fact, Trump writing at all, some people find that hard to believe. JD Vance says, forgive my language, but this story is completely
My president is retarded. He doesn't know words like that. That's a great defense to go with, yeah.
The Wall Street Journal should be ashamed of publishing it. Where's the letter? Would you be shocked to learn they never showed it to us before publishing it? Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump? Of course, then you have a response to that where somebody says, Carson's an enigma to me. This is clearly debunking the idea that the word enigma is not in Trump's vocabulary.
Video.
Now, Carson's an enigma to me.
So that clearly debunks the idea that he couldn't have written this because enigma wasn't in his vocabulary. It actually is. So from where I'm sitting, the letter is odd. But it also is in line with some of these other letters from people like Lex Wexner. It's also in line with some of the doodles that Trump has publicly made. And it is also in line with Trump's recent odd behavior with the Epstein files, where he keeps setting up the idea that there's this big hoax coming, that there's phony stuff in there. And that actually is the most persuasive piece of evidence, Trump's own behavior in this weird meltdown, more than anything which has convinced me. Because on the one hand, there are some things which would tilt in the favor of it not being Trump, right? The very fact that it's a letter, the prose of the letter is a bit strange. And then you also have the fact that, okay, if the DOJ had this during the Biden years, why didn't it come out, right? So that's all pretty compelling until...
Wait, the DOJ, this didn't come from the DOJ, did it? I forget, on the Wall Street Journal. Didn't they just source like other people who might have had it? Was this sourced from the DOJ? Also, I don't know why the DOJ would necessarily even release something like this. It's not like this is evidence necessarily of a crime or anything like that, right?
You once again just look at the way Trump has been behaving. I think it strongly suggests that Trump saw something in the Epstein files, was debriefed on something that he was worried about. Whether it was this letter or something else, I don't know. But clearly there's something in those files that he was concerned about being involved with. I think we need a full declassification of these files, except for the CSAM and victims. Now, to the declassifying comment, Donald Trump, based on this, has posted, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked AG Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam should end right now. And Pam Bondi has said, President Trump, we are ready to move on the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. I think that ultimately it needs to be every...
Remember, for the 20th time, if this was a Democrat, they would be insisting on a special counsel, right? Biden had to appoint a special counsel for his documents shit. There was a special counsel that was held over from Trump's term to investigate Hunter Biden. Remember that. If this was a Democrat, there would be a special counsel 1 trillion%. But since it's Trump, there will never be one. Yeah.
Everything or nothing. You can't give a little bit at this point. With the level of allegations being leveled against our president, that he would send pretty incriminating letters to the world's most notorious pedophile. Now, again, before he was arrested the first time, right? But given the letter's contents, given that they're doing so much, they're going to be suing the Wall Street Journal over this, to deny it, I think if it turns out to be true, is devastating. I mean, totally devastating and horrific, and no one should defend it if it's true. And that's what we need to find out at this point. So I think the answer is clearly that yes, I would love the Wall Street Journal to release this photo if they have it in their possession, if they can release it from their source. And I would love for the DOJ to declassify the actual relevant pieces of this whole thing, because the absolutely central piece of evidence in this whole story are these letters, which are in a leather-bound album and supposedly in the DOJ's possession. That's clearly not...
Oh, it does say that, wait. Are among the documents examined by Justice Department officials who investigated Epstein and Maxwell years ago, according to people who have reviewed the pages. Oh, so maybe they looked at it, but it's hard to say if they actually took this into evidence, or they should have like copies of pictures of it or something, I would imagine, preserved somewhere. But
story are these letters, which are in a leather-bound album and supposedly in the DOJ's possession. That's clearly not going to be a grand jury transcript. That's going to be one of the pieces of evidence they collected from Epstein or Maxwell. And so that is a different category altogether. So I think given that, it's hard to see this as anything other than a distraction from what is actually relevant here, which is, does this album exist? Yes or no? Show us the evidence, right? Show us the physical evidence. Instead, this is just going to get people riled up because it's an Epstein release, but it's guaranteed by definition not to have the evidence one way or another. A transcript is not going to have a piece of physical evidence. And we need to demand answers on that, because either it exists or it doesn't. And if it does exist, that's a huge problem. If it doesn't, for the Wall Street Journal, that's a huge problem. And I'm really not sure which we are going to get first. All I know is that if you are looking from...
I mean, like, who has more credibility, the Wall Street Journal or the entire Trump administration? That's an easy one. The Wall Street Journal has way more credibility, so I mean...
The outside, I would highly recommend that you don't just dismiss things based on a quick, hot Twitter take. There's a lot to this story that is corroborating, and also we need more evidence on before we can really make up their mind. I see a lot of people have just already written it off as completely true or completely false. I think they're not thinking through the implications of, if this is true, how really crazy it would be if we live in that world. And then also the people who are dismissing it as false right away, you're not really thinking through, like, you might be defending a right? That is one of the outcomes that could be true here. We don't know. And again, even if it is true, we don't know what is meant by things like, may every day be another wonderful secret. When calling Jeffrey Epstein a pal, we wouldn't know what that meant, but yeah, it's just stunning. So this report, you absolutely have to watch it. We're gonna have a lot more in the coming days to try to validate it or falsify it, and we'll see which one happens first. And yeah, that's pretty much all I'm prepared to say at this moment.
Back in my day, the government told better lies. True. What do you think of the letter? Do you think it's real, the Trump one? I mean, it seems like it is. It seems like it fits. I don't know. There's nothing in it that makes me think like, oh my God, this must be fake, no? It was Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, and Ghislaine Maxwell was preparing a special gift to mark the occasion. She turned to Epstein's family and friends. One of them was Donald Trump. Maxwell collected letters from Trump and dozens of Epstein's other associates for a 2003 birthday album, according to documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, famously a far-left publication. Pages from the leather-bound album, assembled before Epstein was first arrested in 2006, are among the documents examined by Justice Department officials who investigated Epstein and Maxwell years ago. According to people who have reviewed the pages, it's unclear if any of the pages are part of the Trump administration's recent review. The president's past relationship with Epstein is at a sensitive moment. The Justice Department documents the so-called Epstein files, and who or what is in them are at the center of a storm consuming the Trump administration. The letter was... Trump tried to say, I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women, he said. Apparently, Trump did sell pictures that he'd drawn before, so. The whole letter was voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. And then it says, it's like a screenplay letter or whatever. Donald, yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Wow. Keep in mind that, like, all of fucking QAnon was spun off of... It wasn't cheese pizza. What the was it? It's not a caustic. Oh, God, what was the name? The guy, where they were like, Podesta. What was it? The Podesta email that started QAnon. Destiny, is it possible that he paid someone to do that and forgot that he did? No, he probably wrote this letter, but obviously he doesn't want to be associated with anything related to Epstein, so now he's like denying and he's super ass-paying about all of it. Yeah, it was some order for like 1,000 pizzas or 1,000 hot dogs or whatever, and people were like, oh my God, hot dogs, pizzas, it's fucking... child porn, or not child porn, children. This is coded language for children. All of QAnon started off of those stupid fucking Podesta emails where people try to interpret it as like, oh my God, this social event they're talking about is actually like the satanic blood purification ritual where they sacrifice children. Like, I wish I had a picture of the emails. God, these are so fucking stupid. Trump is gearing up for a lawsuit. Truly, he needs to just take the Destiny advice and just stream through it. Just keep doing your shit, whatever the fuck. You know, people are going to be mad for a little bit, but they will forget. They will move on. People do eventually. They will, especially your fucking sycophantic cult. Just keep on memeing, keep on pushing. Yeah, just do that. But if he sues them, it's going to be brought up in the news over and over and over again for so long. So I feel like it would be a stupid thing to do. Isn't Wall Street Journal going to cuck out and settle? Why would they cuck out and settle? They know that they're going to get sued for this, so why would they settle? Why would they even publish this if they were just planning on settling right now? Someone at Fox must have hit the emergency switch because now they're airing a Biden blunder mix. Forgive my language, but this story is complete and utter bullshit. The Wall Street Journal should be ashamed for publishing it. Where is this letter? Would you be shocked to learn that they never showed it to us before publishing it? Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump? I'll be introducing legislation to end the House of Representatives subscription contract with the Wall Street Journal. Americans shouldn't be paying for disgusting and filthy rags. I've also directed my entire staff to delete their taxpayer-funded Wall Street Journal accounts. So you're admitting now that it was all taxpayer-funded Wall Street Journal accounts? Like, why were we paying for it to begin with? Great question. I'm the new guy. Just got here 3 months ago.
Obviously some who will not be covering big developments like Comey's daughter and her comments today. I mean, Trump told MAGA to be quiet about Jeffrey Epstein. Fox News obeyed. Fox News falling in line with Trump's Epstein plea, but will the rest of MAGA media comply? We'll play a little bit. This is Rob Schmidt addressing all of this on his show here on Newsmax last night.
Again, this is what MAGA voters voted for. A government for the people, where the rich and the powerful get the same justice as the rest of us. You may have noticed the Epstein story was almost nowhere to be found, though, on Fox News these last couple of days. After months of very consistent coverage, it's pretty obvious that a lot of people don't really know what to do with this. There's a lot of people that are very scared because it's clear that the White House didn't want this to be a subject, but Trump's base, his supporters and base, care about it.
Wow.
I mean, Hogan, there is...
Trump announces a lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal. Just the President of the United States suing media publications for making, for publishing mean stuff about him. Totally normal, totally okay, totally not weird. Definitely no chilling effect on speech there. Fuck, I hate this. Okay, sure, I need to unplug. We gotta go back to video games. The Trump administration ordered FBI agents investigating the Epstein files to flag any mentions of Trump, according to Senate Judiciary Committee. My office was told that these personnel were instructed to flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned. Notably, in 2002, Mr. Trump said of Epstein, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the minor side." Oh yeah. Just yesterday it was reported that the department previously reviewed a leather-bound album comprised of dozens of letters.
Mr. President, Mr. President, why not go further than just unsealing this?
Mr. President, did you send that letter? Release the full file.
Based.
American President Trump, the American people want to know about the Epstein list. Can you elaborate on that, please? God damn it. Fuck. Why do y'all keep bringing... Okay, Obama.
True.
What does that have to do with anything?
That was my boom.
Joe Biden is old. Old as fuck. So are you.
Auto pen. Gotta bring up the auto pen.
9/11 was bad.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah. I feel like Trump doesn't really say
Basically,
that.
now that we can forget about that. No, we still want to know about the list and whose names were on it. Like now. Kamala Harris.
What about
That's
who is on the list?
What? Democrats are bad.
I guess right.
We still want to know about the list and the names on them. Yo, when are you guys gonna realize I don't have your best interests at heart because I'm rich and you're not? What? There's no way he just said that. 9/11 was bad, though.
Hey, I agree with that.
That was bad.
Agree on that.
Terrible. Even Democrats can agree on that. That shit was awful, right? DEI. You're losing me. I mean, the list doesn't exist. No, that's not. I think our president might be lying to us. The list, Democrats created the list. I thought you said the list doesn't exist. No. Fuck it, I'm gonna just throw this one out there. North Korea? No. So 2015. Okay, all right. I'm gonna go back to the drawing board with this one. The Democrats are commies. I'm going. Yeah, we'll come back.
We'll reconvene.
Trump's "I'm not involved with Jeffrey Epstein" t-shirt has a lot of people asking questions already answered by his t-shirt. And the funny thing about that meme is that it was originally literally about human trafficking. But the long and short of it is that the MAGA movement may have finally taken a stand against the Trump administration.
The current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covered.
Fuck, I feel like a lot of these people don't understand the current political climate. Like, Tucker Carlson is a Russian simp. This guy hates the United States now. He's basically become Julian Assange 2.0. I don't like it when people are citing, Kyla made this mistake yesterday too when she cited Candace Owens. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are not like traditional MAGA people. They'll kind of overlap when it's convenient to do so, but they're not like card-carrying MAGA. They just hate the United States and they'll jump on MAGA when it's convenient, but otherwise they are like fully in their own fucking world. Like Candace Owens, I was gonna say Candace Owens is like an odd one out in the Daily Wire, but that's not true. She's not even in the Daily Wire anymore. Yeah.
But may have finally taken a stand against the Trump.
Is Charlie Kirk MAGA? Yes, Charlie Kirk is solidly suck MAGA, 100%, yes.
Administration.
The current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covering up crimes.
But back in 2024, candidate Trump made some promises about releasing these so-called Epstein files.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
During his most recent presidential campaign, Trump said that he would have, quote, no problem looking into the Epstein client list.
The list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah.
The current political climate is in agreement with your opinion about Trump regarding these files. Stop missing the forest for the trees. Take the win. You guys are so short-sighted and retarded because you guys will say stupid shit. It's such a bad way to operate through the world. It's actually so retarded is you see something and you're like, well, if it works right now, then I can't agree with it. No, you fucking moron. Correct the small errors now so you're not making forced huge errors later. Just get your fucking facts right. How is that a hard thing to expect from somebody? Yeah, these people are critical of Trump. That's good. Celebrate that. That's fine. But that doesn't mean you have to make a whole bunch of unforced errors. Why? Why get stuff wrong? This is so fucking retarded. Holy shit.
Current DOJ under Pam Bondi is covering up crimes.
But back in 2024,
that's not a huge error that Legal Eagle is making. I just wish that more people would be a little bit aware of where the political divides are right now. That's it. Jesus.
Candidate Trump made some promises about releasing these so-called Epstein files.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
During his most recent presidential campaign, Trump said that he would have, quote, no problem looking into the Epstein client list.
The list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Then Attorney General Pam Bondi told everyone that Epstein's legendary client list was right.
That 50-minute interview was so fucking...
There on her desk, except it wasn't. Pam Bondi released a 2-page memo saying that actually Epstein did just kill himself. There's no secret client list, and there are no more documents that are going to be released. And everyone believed her, and that was the end of the story. No, I'm just kidding. Trump supporters weren't having it at all. Even Trump's reliable buddies over Fox News aren't buying the narrative.
Why do you say he's become the deep state?
What is more deep state than covering up for pedophiles?
And Trump took to Truth Social to post a long screed proclaiming how great Bondi is and telling everyone to, quote, not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. Except that a whole bunch of people care a whole lot about Epstein.
Make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Raise your hand if it matters a lot to you. Raise your hand. So every hand of 7,000 people.
And now we live in a world where Congress's resident Jewish space laser enthusiast Marjorie Taylor Greene and Silicon Valley progressive Ro Khanna might finally agree on something. And meanwhile, while all this was playing out in the media, the Trump Department of Justice finally acted on Ghislaine Maxwell's plea for the Supreme Court to overturn her conviction after months of delay. Oh, and now Donald Trump is threatening to sue, quote, the ass off of Rupert Murdoch. He's furious because the Wall Street Journal published a story last night about Trump sending Jeffrey Epstein a handwritten birthday card in 2003 where Trump hand drew sketches of a naked woman and then made his signature mimic pubic hair, and which Trump ends the letter with, quote, happy birthday and may every day be another wonderful secret. So suffice to say, there is a lot going on here, both in the media, in the government, and in the courts, and a lot of suspicious timing with how the Trump administration is playing this, and baffling statements from Trump himself. So as the MAGA world implodes, let's take a step back and talk about how we got here, what the Epstein files actually are, and what they are not. And make no mistake about it, apart from all of the fabricated conspiracy theories, the Epstein saga does point to an actual real-life conspiracy that spits in the face of anyone who cares about equal justice and the rule of law in this country. But from the very beginning, everything that touched Jeffrey Epstein reeked of corruption. In 1996, Maria Farmer, an artist in her mid-20s, reported to the NYPD and the FBI that Epstein and his associate, British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, had violently sexually assaulted her while she was visiting his property in upstate New York. Farmer claims that she also warned the FBI that Epstein and Maxwell had committed multiple serious sex crimes against girls, including her minor sister, that Epstein stole nude and partially nude photos of 2 of her minor sisters, and that he possessed child pornography. But neither law enforcement agency followed up on Farmer.
Wait, what? Epstein stole nude and partially nude photos of 2 of her minor sisters. What does that mean? Why do these photos exist? Wait, what? Okay.
That Epstein stole nude and partially nude photos of 2 of her minor sisters, and that
maybe we should do a full Epstein thing next and go over his story from start to finish.
He possessed child pornography. But neither law enforcement agency followed up on Farmer's complaint. And nearly a decade later, in March of 2005, a woman reported to the Palm Beach police that her 14-year-old stepdaughter had been molested by a wealthy man.
Yeah, it could be childhood nudity. Because like if you take, like I think the actual intention of the picture matters. Like if you have like a picture of a baby in a bathtub or whatever, that doesn't count as like child porn. But if you were to upload it to like Baby Jerkers R Us or something, then they could charge you with child porn for the exact same picture. I think it depends there.
In subsequent police interviews, the girl confirmed that she'd been recruited by a female classmate, also an undergrad, who had done sexual favors for Epstein in exchange for money. That classmate apparently took the 14-year-old complainant to Epstein's house, where his staff escorted her to his bedroom. Epstein appeared in nothing but a towel and told her to undress and then massage him, and during that massage, he sexually abused her. Now, the unnamed complainant came from a rough background. The underage classmate who recruited her had recently been sexually assaulted before she met Epstein, and this would become a pattern for Epstein. He preyed on girls from poor, violent, and troubled backgrounds, sexually abused them in exchange for money, and then paid them to recruit similarly troubled girls for him to abuse. Now, when Palm Beach detective Joe Ricari began conducting witness interviews, Epstein was quickly tipped off by one of the potential witnesses. Epstein then hired his own private investigators who sought out victims and witnesses often before they were even contacted
contacted by the police. Detective Ricari still managed to identify 17 victims, all in the 14 to 20 age range, all of which recounted a similar fact pattern of the original 14-year-old victim. Ricari identified 17 victims, all in the 14 to 20 age range, often before they were even contacted by the police. Detective Ricari still managed to identify 17 victims, all in the 14 to 20 age range, all of which recounted a similar fact pattern of the original 14-year-old victim. Recruitment by another girl or woman, ostensibly to give Epstein massages in exchange for money, being told to undress, and then being sexually assaulted or groped, being paid for the massage and sexual interaction, and being offered compensation to find future victims. Now, based on the overwhelming testimony, Detective Ricari provided the state's attorney's office with probable cause affidavit drafts for felony sexual offenses for Epstein and 2 of his female recruiters. His attorney Barry Kreischer, though, declined to talk to any victims or parents and decided that 17 witnesses just wasn't enough to make a case. So Kreischer offered Epstein a sweet plea deal. When Epstein rejected that, Kreischer made the highly unusual choice to take the matter to a grand jury. Typically, a state's attorney would simply charge and arrest the accused. But during the grand jury proceedings, the prosecutor, Lana Belahovlik, invited only 2 victims to testify before the grand jury. And
Hello?
Okay. Yeah, for the next 2 weeks, you should definitely cover Epstein. Like, it's such a big story right now, and you'll get...
I don't care about viewers, especially the types of viewers you farm from this, and 2, like I have a feeling that it's going to be, anytime stuff like this is way less sensational than people want it to be, people just say that I'm a contrarian and nobody actually gives a fuck about any of the actual evidence anyway, and then it's just like, what the fuck is even the point, right? Like if I covered the JFK shooting shit and I came to the conclusion like, yeah, JFK almost certainly wasn't, like, there was no big conspiracy around this, and people just get ass painted and then they're like, whatever, it's just like not even worth the time. And like, what?
I mean, no, his story is very interesting if you look into it, like regardless of like the conspiracy stuff, like you're right, like that it's not as like conspiratorial as people make it out to be, but there still is some stuff there to look into for sure. Like his background is like sus to say the least, but I mean, I think it would be interesting.
Maybe after, maybe, you know what, maybe after COVID stuff, maybe we'll do it, okay?
I think now is the perfect time to strike, though, because like everyone is speaking about it.
Yeah, but no one knows anything about it.
It's
It's not like now is the perfect time to jump into a thing that like nobody knows anything about. Everybody has like the most retarded fucking ideas about like what's like why.
There's plenty of stuff out there though. Like this has been a story for many years. Like he was investigated back then, like in 2006 or whatever. Like there's so much out there to talk about. Like.
Oh, okay.
And the transcripts are all going to be released soon. But...
Oh, there you go. Well, after the transcripts are released, so we can dive into it. So I have something to go over. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
And it appears that Belahovlik actively undermined her own witnesses by peppering the girls with questions about unsavory social media posts and even accusing a 15-year-old victim of being a prostitute. And the state's attorney's office was also in close communication with Epstein's defense.
Did you already do this last year? No, I just went over his like suicide and stuff related to that, but I didn't dive into his background or anything.
And in fact, it was Epstein's attorneys who provided the prosecutors with the underage girls' questionable social media posts, which the prosecutors then used to bully their own underage witnesses. And in the end, the grand jury returned only a single charge, felony solicitation of prostitution, which said nothing about the girls being underage. Now, if you're infuriated by this, you're not the only one. Detective Ricari's boss, Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder, one of the few good guys in the sordid story, was also furious enough at the state's attorney's actions that he sent a scathing letter.
The same thing could be said about Israel. Well, but Israel and history and the region and all that, that's like a rich world of information that I think is super interesting and tells us like how regions develop, how the world developed. It's just an interesting thing, even without any debates. I think learning about that was interesting. Learning the background on a single guy's life, that everybody has injected a conspiracy into every single part of this guy's existence, sounds like the most boring and annoying fucking thing in the universe to go over. Like learning all of Epstein's background will enrich my life exactly 0%. But I don't know. Maybe I will after the COVID stuff.
To Kreischer stating, quote, after giving this much thought and consideration, I must urge you to examine the unusual course that your office's handling of this matter has taken and consider if good and sufficient reason exists to require your disqualification from the prosecution of these cases. Detective Ricari also took the extraordinary step of going to the FBI to ask them to prosecute the case since the state's attorney had done such a poor job. But the feds agreed to launch their own investigation. One can only speculate that this was because they already had a file on the guy from 1996 and probably wanted to save face, but we'll never know. But the FBI's reinvestigation turned up evidence of additional victims, including 34 confirmed minors. And the victims reported the same fact pattern of massages and sexual abuse. The feds found pictures of many of Epstein's victims in his house, as well as plenty of other corroborating evidence tying him to numerous underage victims.
The actual harem.
And armed with this mountain of evidence, the feds sharpened their lawyers' war axes and offered Epstein a slap-on-the-wrist plea deal that should have made national headlines as a travesty of justice, but it did not. Now, back in 2007, we didn't have the tools we have today to get a bird's-eye view of how the Epstein slap-on-the-wrist spread throughout the media and public sentiment. At best, a Google trend history reveals that the search term Jeffrey Epstein peaked at 100 searches and was mostly confined to users in New York. But when you use modern technology, you can see the massive political earthquake over Epstein. Term Jeffrey Epstein peaked at 100 searches and was mostly confined to users.
I don't think this is just 100 searches, right? Isn't this like graphing interest over time? So like if something has very, very low interest and then it gets a lot of interest, but that a lot of interest is still low compared to like all the other prior interests, it'll still be 100. I think this is just graphed on a 0 to 100 for this is the most interest it ever had.
In New York. But when you use modern technology, you can see the massive political earthquake over Epstein in real time. We can see that there have been 372 stories about Epstein in the last 3 months, with 46% of the coverage coming from right-leaning sources, 24% coming from the center, and 30% coming from the left. And if you take a closer look at specific stories like the reporting from Wired that revealed editing in the security camera video of the night that Epstein died, you see a fascinating breakdown of how attitudes across political divides are rapidly changing. This story was only covered by about 50 sources, with 40% of the coverage coming from the right. On the left, sources mostly framed the missing footage as critical minutes that point to a larger cover-up and possible conspiracy. On the right, sources largely agreed with the left that the missing footage was critical, and were even more likely to embrace the yet unverified as of this recording claims that there exists even more missing footage. And in the center, sources typically focused on the problematic nature of the missing footage, but were not as likely to point to a cover-up. Now, headlines and coverage vary greatly depending on the source, which is why I use today's sponsor, Ground News. The Nobel Peace Center called Ground News an excellent way to stay informed, avoid echo chambers, and expand your worldview. They've been a long-time supporter of this channel and independent journalism at large. Because Ground News gathers related articles from around the world and across the political spectrum, so you can see the bias and compare coverage. Every story comes with a quick visual breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership of the source reporting, all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations.
Wow.
Now, one of my favorite parts is their bias comparison feature, which highlights specific differences in reporting across the political spectrum. And also their blind spot feed, which shows you stories that are unreported by either side of the political spectrum. But all this is why Ground News is my favorite way to get the news. And as a legal eaglet, you can save 40% off the Ground News Vantage subscription by scanning the code on screen or clicking on the link down below. This subscription gives you unlimited access to every feature, including the bias insight tool and blind spot feed. So click now or I will see you in court. But let's get back to 2007, when Jeffrey Epstein was offered the sweetheart plea bargain deal of the century. In June of 2007, the local U.S. Attorney's Office, under the leadership of Alex Acosta, issued a 53-page indictment against Epstein. Now, negotiations for a plea deal began with Epstein's all-star legal team. Ken Starr, famous for serving as independent counsel during the impeachment of
the Clinton shit.
Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, famous for lots of stuff, and Jay Lefkowitz, a partner at Kirkland & Ellis, the same law firm where Acosta was previously a partner. And after a lot of cozy meetings with defense attorneys at hotels over breakfast, Acosta offered Epstein a remarkable deal. Epstein could plead guilty to state charges, 1 count of solicitation of prostitution and 1 count of solicitation of prostitution with a minor under the age of 18. He would be sentenced to 8 months in jail following a year of house arrest and be adjudicated as a convicted sex offender who must register twice a year in Florida. And that was it. That was the penalty for sexually abusing at least 34 underage girls in a systematic, calculating way for years. And even then, Epstein only spent his evenings in Florida jail. During the day, he was permitted work release at his swanky office building. Now, Acosta's deal with Epstein included several other gifts fit for a king of Wall Street: an agreement that the victims would not be notified, a promise that the deal would be kept under seal, and an agreement to dismiss all grand jury subpoenas. And Epstein's all-star legal team also managed to secure one more extraordinary victory: a non-prosecution agreement which allowed Epstein and his co-conspirators to avoid federal sex trafficking charges. Now, we've covered this before, but this plea deal was extraordinary for several reasons. First, 18 U.S.C. 3771, the Crime Victims' Rights Act, gives victims the right to be apprised of the developments in criminal proceedings, the right to be present at public proceedings, and the right to be heard related to plea deals, sentencing, and other key developments. Now, the prosecutors not only bypassed any notification of the victims, but they actively lied to the victims, sending them a letter months after the plea deal had already been signed, urging patience while the prosecution, quote, conducts a thorough investigation. Now, bypassing this law at the request of a serial sex abuser's attorneys was an extraordinary move by Acosta's part. Now, second, Acosta's agreement with Epstein not only prevented future prosecutions of Epstein, but also future prosecutions of his 4 named co-conspirators and an open-ended category of, quote, any potential co-conspirators. Another extraordinary gift. Now, both of these aspects of the agreement are legally important, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, the Miami Herald really blew the lid off of this entire story and reported that the plea deal may have been affected by Epstein's role as a witness in the 2008 securities fraud case against Bear Stearns executives. Now, ironically, those executives were later acquitted, along with pretty much anyone else who played a direct role in blowing up our economy. Now, we don't know for sure, but it looks like prosecutors threw a couple dozen underage girls under the bus in order to get some ineffective testimony about the cheating finance execs who tanked the world economy. So, Jeffrey Epstein served 13 months of nighttime imprisonment, spent his days at his swanky office, and apparently even continued to have women flown out to Palm Beach to have sex with him in exchange for money. And a few potential violations of the house arrest were documented in the state's attorney's files, but no one took action. And after his 13 months were up,
can't he find vulnerable girls like in Palm Beach? I don't understand why they have to fly in from a whole other place. It feels like it's so much more work than it needs to be.
Epstein seemed to return to his ordinary life of sexual predation. And faced with some additional law enforcement scrutiny, he purchased 2 private islands off the coast of the U.S. Virgin Islands in 2010 and 2016, respectively, where he then had even more leverage over his victims. In a later lawsuit, one of his victims revealed that in an act of desperation, she tried to swim off the island to escape him. But Epstein and his co-conspirators located her and then took her passport in an attempt to keep her captive. Another victim alleged that when she tried to escape the private island, Epstein and his co-conspirators returned her to his house and suggested physical restraint or harm if she failed to cooperate. And meanwhile, U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta went on to be appointed as Trump's Secretary of Labor.
On behalf of the President of the United States, it's my honor to welcome you all today to the office of the Vice President here at the White House complex for a very important moment in the life of this administration and in our national life, as I administer the oath of office to the 27th Secretary of Labor for the United States of America, Alexander Acosta.
Where is Epstein's island like? What is this, like part of the U.S. or part of like a territory or part of a?
And all the bad guys lived happily ever after. Until
I was usually asleep before we landed, so I don't remember where it was.
Two scrappy reporters, a few more heroes in the story, started looking into this. Julie K. Brown, an investigative reporter at the Miami Herald, and Miami Herald videographer Emily Michaud began investigating Epstein in early 2017, about the same time as Acosta was being nominated as Secretary of Labor by Donald Trump in his first term. And they uncovered 80 potential victims as young as 13 and 14 years old when the abuse occurred, and conducted video and written interviews with 8 survivors, the most important heroes in the story, who bravely agreed to tell their stories. And the Miami Herald's investigation ultimately led to Acosta's resignation from his Secretary of Labor role, and finally to a real criminal indictment against Jeffrey Epstein. So on July 6, 2019, federal prosecutors in New York got a second chance to prosecute Epstein. And unlike Bill O'Reilly, you're probably smart enough to figure out that since this is 2019, this is still the Trump administration. Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, reportedly a hub of his sex trafficking network, and under 18 U.S.C. 1591, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York charged him with sex trafficking and sex trafficking conspiracy related to the abuse of dozens of minor girls at his properties in Palm Beach and New York. Now, the Southern District of New York's charges weren't double jeopardy because in Acosta's original case, Epstein only pled to state-level charges, and the 2019 indictment included only federal charges. Acosta's plea agreement with Epstein, though, would have likely become a thornier issue. But the U.S. attorneys never had to address that because on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his cell. A medical examiner's report ruled it a suicide by hanging. So obviously that ended the criminal prosecution against him, but it did not stop the legal fallout. Now, Maria Farmer and several other Epstein victims victims alleged the involvement of Epstein's longtime companion, Ghislaine Maxwell. Victims accused Maxwell of recruiting them, manipulating and gaslighting them by normalizing Epstein's predatory behavior, and even of sexually abusing them herself. And the Department of Justice's investigation corroborated this, finding that Maxwell and Epstein identified vulnerable girls, typically from single-mother households and difficult financial circumstances. Maxwell then helped Epstein entice and recruit the girls as young as 14 to visit Epstein's Palm Beach residence to be sexually abused by him. Maxwell also encouraged victims to travel to Epstein's other properties, knowing that they would be sexually abused there, and she helped pay victims for the sex acts and for recruiting other additional girls to be similarly abused by Epstein. And on December 29, 2021, Maxwell was found guilty of conspiracy to...
Hold on, not everybody that was at Epstein's island, okay, we didn't all do bad things, okay? Just because there's a picture of me being here or not, okay, has nothing to do with anything that happened there, okay? So, calm down, all right?
entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport minors to participate in illegal sex acts, transporting a minor to participate in illegal sex acts, sex trafficking conspiracy, and sex trafficking of a minor. Now, numerous powerful men and female co-conspirators have been named in connection with Epstein's sex crimes, but Maxwell remains the only person in the United States who was ever actually convicted of sex crimes related to the Epstein abuses. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But Maxwell may still evade justice thanks to Acosta's plea agreement with Epstein. In a 2023 appeal to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, Maxwell argued that because Acosta's immunity deal with Epstein included an unnamed list of co-conspirators, and because Acosta didn't expressly limit the agreement to the Southern District of Florida, she should be included and should be immune. The DOJ has counter-argued that, quote, the phrase United States in a plea agreement like this is just a generic reference to the U.S. Attorney's Office that enters into the agreement and is not on its own enough to establish an affirmative appearance. The DOJ also argued that Maxwell has no right to invoke the protections of the agreement because she wasn't a signatory to the agreement and hadn't sufficiently argued its protections were conferred onto her. Now, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed Maxwell's conviction, but in April 2025, Maxwell filed a petition for writ of certiorari with the Supreme Court, asking the court to find that Acosta's sweetheart deal applied to her as well. Maxwell argued that there's a circuit split as to whether a promise on behalf of the United States or the government by a United States Attorney's Office in one district is binding upon offices in other districts. Now, confronted with this challenge, the Trump DOJ did nothing for 3 months, but mere days after Trump's meltdown on Truth Social, Trump's DOJ filed a conveniently timed response to Maxwell's petition for writ of certiorari, arguing that the plea deal did not apply to her. And the DOJ contended that, quote, at the time the NPA was negotiated, DOJ policy barred U.S. attorneys from entering into non-prosecution agreements that bound other districts unless they obtained the approval of those districts or the criminal division. And it would be strange if one rogue district attorney could bind the entire U.S. government from ever filing charges against Epstein or his co-conspirators without ever consulting headquarters. But as of the recording of this video, the court hasn't decided whether it will hear Maxwell's case or not. And meanwhile, the many civil actions against Epstein's estate and associates continue. And for everyone out there hungry for names to be named, well, we have some good news. Thanks to how our justice system works, lots of names have been named in the civil cases. These are the true Epstein files, and we've gone through them, so you don't have to. One of the bravest and most vocal survivors was Virginia Roberts Giuffre. Giuffre was involved as a pseudonymous plaintiff in one of the first batch of civil lawsuits against Epstein in 2009. In 2011, she revealed her identity as a survivor of abuse by Epstein and Maxwell. And she went on to file several lawsuits, including one against England's Prince Andrew for sexual abuse when she was 16 and 17, which resulted in an undisclosed settlement. In depositions and public statements, Giuffre has claimed many times that Maxwell recruited and groomed her for sexual abuse. Maxwell vehemently denied this and publicly called Giuffre a liar, and in response, Giuffre filed a defamation lawsuit against Maxwell. The case settled in 2017, but the case generated reams of documents, including depositions, pictures, communications, and a vast trove of other evidence. These and other documentary evidence generated in other civil and criminal cases are the real Epstein files. And in early 2024, the court in Giuffre versus Maxwell ordered the unsealing of many of these documents. These documents had previously been sealed to protect the identities of many of Epstein's victims who still have not publicly identified themselves. Many of the documents contain not just names, but also identifying information about people's backgrounds, personal details that have been used to re-identify victims. And court documents are often sealed in cases involving sexual abuse, especially the sexual abuse of minors, because the documents can contain exceptionally private and troubling details, which, especially in a post-internet world, could affect the victim's safety. Indeed, in their depositions, several of Epstein's victims said that after their identities became public, they feared for their safety. But the documents in the Giuffre case were unsealed because there was an exceptionally strong public interest in the case and because Giuffre herself had argued that they should be unsealed. Maxwell's legal team argued vehemently against the unsealing of the documents, despite the fact that Maxwell had already been convicted years before. But this highlights a key tension in the case, the balance between the victim's need for privacy and the public's need to hold Epstein's co-conspirators accountable. And this tension is particularly strong in the Epstein case because many of the girls involved were not only victims themselves, but were also paid to recruit future victims. Even still, many redactions were applied to protect the identities of victims who have still never publicly identified themselves.
You still think Epstein is a lone actor? Well, no, I mean, Ghislaine was his go-to or whatever. But the question isn't whether or not people helped him. The question is whether there's like a pedophile blackmail billionaire rig or whatever, right? That's the big claim.
And feared for their safety if they were named. And many prominent people were also named in the unsealed documents, but they had all been previously identified as Epstein associates. Giuffre's unsealed deposition detailed several times that Epstein directed her as a minor to have sex with prominent men, including Epstein's attorney, Alan Dershowitz, former Governor Bill Richardson, former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell, CEO Les Wexner, Prince Andrew, MIT scientist Marvin Minsky, hotel company heir Thomas Pritzker, and billionaire Glenn Dubin. And all these men, except Minsky, who died in 2016 before Giuffre's allegations against him were public, had denied these charges and none have been criminally charged. And the accusation against Dershowitz was particularly contentious. He and Giuffre both sued each other for defamation, agreeing in 2022 to settle their lawsuits against each other. And immediately after the settlement, Giuffre released a public statement saying that she, quote, may have made a mistake in identifying Mr. Dershowitz, but she later clarified that she, quote, did not and would never exonerate Mr. Dershowitz. The Giuffre's case was one of the many against Epstein and his associates. And companies tied to Epstein, including JP Morgan Chase, Deutsche Bank, and Barclays, have all...
Okay, we're good.